calling all beings. Calling all beings.
Can I get a amen for calling beings? Yes. Good evening, Debs.
Hi. Happy
Hi,
Thursday.
welcome back to calling. I'm sorry. Well, have the mic volume do that time.
You did great.
Okay, good. This automatically adjusting works. All right, welcome to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ. And man, we light on the people tonight because Nathan decided he's going to New York City, which is how Mick Jagger says it in one of those Rolling Stone songs. However, my homegirl, Debsy, Websy, in the joint. And man, what a week Deb's had. Now, some of you think you done been through some stuff. But Deb's, there's a bridge that she drives over, and after she drove over it, that bridge fell down.
Luckily, not in the same time span, because that would have been even worse. I feel so bad for the person who was last off that bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't make life. Did we lose life on that bridge?
Yeah, we lost probably about 6 people. They think it could be more.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking in terms of that, that's kind of like, kind of like the Khobar Towers. I was kind of like one of those dudes. I took off, went home, and then something like 5-6 days later, the Khobar Towers blew up. That was sort of a very early Al-Qaeda strike in 1990. I think it was June 25th, 1996, perhaps, or 95. So someone could check me on that. But anyway, hey, Julie. Jules is in the chat. So we're super light-handed tonight. Like I was saying, so Jules, Nathan is going to New York City. You know, I'm thinking Mick Jagger right now. And Courtney Marchesani, who is she's our cab prospect. So I want you to picture motorcycle jacket or vest, and she has the bottom rocker that says Earth for the the location, but she doesn't have the top rocker yet. Once, she's fully in, she's going to have the top rocker on her jacket, which says cab, of course, and Earth.
You need to have a taxi license.
Yes. Yeah, she needs to go get her taxi license. Exactly. And New York. So yeah, Nathan said he was going to New York, Jules. So I can't imagine where else he would be going other than New York City. But I don't know. Maybe he'll send me a message and let me know what the hell he's doing there. But he's been on vacation with his wife there since Debs and I met him. That was the second time that I met Nathan was in New York. The first time I met Debs in person. So, as Jeb says, anywho. Deb, have you patented? Like, do I have to pay you to say that?
No. I'm good.
So this is how much, Deb and our friendship has grown to where she's not going to charge me right there. She's not going to do something like where, what was the other one? We can't say engaging though without paying James Lyon.
I always, when I think of Nathan, I think of 2 terms. I think of bespoke and meta. Always. So he's the meta bespoken one.
I think of on-ramps and off-ramps to UFOs. There's some other good ones. He and Nathan, exo and whatnot is one of his favorite sort of suffixes to certain sentences and stuff. But anyway, I don't know. We're going to get into some UFO talk. So in the chat, jump in, ask questions, and otherwise, me and Deb, we just going to do the damn thing. Yeah. So
let's call it the State of the Union.
The state of, yes. Well, what ontological?
Yes.
Julie. Yeah. See, you guys wonder why Julie is so brilliant. And we've talked about this on our 100th episode. But one of the reasons she's so brilliant is that, so ontological, I think you could apply that, Jules, to both Nathan and Exo, for sure. But the one of the reasons she's brilliant is she can take this written medium here, this chat moderator thing, which is a very particular skill. Actually, we already have a name for this. So when I call Nathan and we talk about the podcast and we strategize, just kind of check in on what's happening, what we're doing, what we want to do, who we want to have. We call it the State of the Onion, which goes way back to my hometown. And the word onions made it into a lot of different sentences. So that's where that comes from. Uh, but State of the Onion. So, Debs, as you know, Pat Benatar once said, hit me with your best shot. What's going on?
Okay, so people are still mulling over a few things that came from Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. They're trying to understand still about the jellyfish UAP, and they're also mulling over the fact that there are comments about them being under investigation because they had that like they had that film. So because they're reporters, because they're journalists, they're protecting their sources, but people are really trying to figure out what is going on with this constant
Which film?
investigation, because they had the jellyfish film and some of the other films. So that's one of the things that's going on. If you wanted to comment on that before we go on to some
Sure.
more.
Yeah. First of all, let's say hello to Carolina Garcia, a direct descendant, by the way, of Francisco Pizarro. Caro Encounters. I actually was on with her a couple weeks ago. We had a bang up discussion about UFOs and stuff, and she did a great job, great interviewer. But anyway, Caro, you now have the link. You're welcome to join us if you like. And if you just want to sit and listen, and yeah, that's all good, man. You can just sit and listen to what about to happen up in here. So with that film, apparently, Deb, that was a phone video of the screen in, I don't want to use the word the jock because I don't know that word was used, but kind of like that would be like the joint operation center at a base. So I don't know the particular because, and actually the security forces for that base also would have had those screens up and would have had eyes on for that aerostat, because the whole purpose of floating that balloon over the base and they had a Westcam L3 MX20 camera on that aerostat, and the whole purpose of it is to have eyes on for anybody who's trying to ingress the base, and particularly if someone was trying to launch a shoulder-fired weapon over that base, you would see them. And of course, there's another system there that is I'm trying to remember the name. It's an adapted Navy system that they use to shoot out objects that are coming over the wire, so to speak. But it's assisted by that MX20 camera. So wherever they were, those guys took a cell phone camera and filmed it. Now, whether or not that was illegal is really dependent upon what environment they were. In the jock, I have not been in a jock where you could have a cell phone, period. Not the flip phone, and definitely not a smartphone. They have cubbies outside the jock where you would put your phone before you went in. You'd put it on silent or turn it off, and then people would, take a break and go out and check their phone. That kind of stuff. Anyway, so what's your thoughts on it, Deb? Give me your take on it, and then I can.
You know what I think? I think the big mistake that keeps happening is that we're talking about national security issues, but the people in the audience, the public, they don't want to see the national security things. They just want to see the object. So if people just did a little bit of editing of these films, would be cool. We don't need to see all the little data points around the object. And that's where we keep having this issue, right? Like, yes, the government can release film. They don't need to tell us about their instruments. We just want to see the objects.
That's a great point. I mean, I can't argue with that point. And actually, if you've seen the Tic Tac and the Go Fast, they have the screen blocked off in certain areas that you can't see. I don't think you can see their GPS position of where they are, like you can in the that video that NYPE Andy released. Help me out, Debs. The rubber duck video,
Yeah.
which I also believe is anomalous.
Right.
So
And you
yeah,
know what?
I mean,
If they did the
what do you
correct
want out of that
editing.
video though? What would you like from that video other than the data covered up for
Well,
for
I think the other
unlays?
mistake is they keep telling the public that they're just clips of the whole video, right?
Hmm.
So cover the data and give us the whole clip or the whole video. And then we don't have the games, we don't have the people arguing, we don't have, like, but they have the whole set of information that they need, because 100% the general public does not want to affect national security. So they just give us the whole film with that blocking that you mentioned that they did previously, and we're good.
So, and Julie mentioned real quickly, said Aguadilla in Puerto Rico. Ironically, one of my colleagues in aerospace wants to vacation there, and we have a new member of our team who's from the island of Puerto Rico, and he was kind of schooling him up on the places he could fly into, and they were talking about Aguadilla, and any person who's involved in the UFO topic, their brain goes, oh man, Aguadilla, and you're thinking about that video. So I turned him on to it. Hopefully he's watched it, and I'll be able to check in with him when my hair isn't on fire at work and find out what he thinks of it. Um, but here's the thing. So Julie, so that was Department of Homeland Security, and to my knowledge, that is not classified. They are out there looking for illegal ingress to the United States, launching from an American territory. And so that video is not classified. You will also notice that if you watch the rubber duck video or the other video, the one of the 810 that's being sort of buzzed by UAP, you will see that they haven't covered up that position either. You can see where those videos occurred. Whereas when you get into the Department of Defense, you're in a whole different area now. Now we're talking about national security in a different way and much more advanced systems. So, for example, on the latest AC-130 platform, you have a newer camera in most cases than what you would have on a Homeland Security. You would have the hand-me-down maybe that we took off of the more advanced DoD assets, and they would go to Department of Homeland Security in some cases. So that's kind of how it goes. It's just a different arena, and with different ability. For example, you could laze. So those cameras, if you guys aren't aware, there is a targeting laser on there. There's a couple different lasers on there. There's a laser designator, and that laser designator, if I had a combat controller guy on the ground who's like an Air Force guy who does airstrikes, and you fire that laser out of that camera, even the one that took that jellyfish video has that capability. He could see, oh, that's where it is. That's what you're talking about. Because with his night vision goggles on, he could see where your laser is. Then you could have a higher powered laser, and whatever you shine that laser on, that's where the missile goes when you fire a missile. So that's kind of what that's all about, if that makes any sense. Now, your Department of Homeland Security stuff, they're not going to be able to fire missiles at illegal personnel. Obviously, and thank God, right? We wouldn't want to do that. Folks that are just trying to cross the border, we wouldn't want to fire some sort of a munition at them. So that's probably disabled on those devices in terms of the targeting laser. Anyway, Deb, now my question for you is, from that video, you were saying you were talking about what they could block in order to make it safer, but what did you get out of that video? What is your assessment and your feeling about what you saw?
Well, my big thing about it is a lot of people wanted to say, "Oh, those are balloons," and they tried to make something that it could be. with Photoshop.
Mhm.
But here's my thoughts about it. It wouldn't have come to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp if the people assessing it just went, "Oh, those are balloons." Like, that's ridiculous, first of all. Second of all, balloons are probably not going to move in a straight trajectory horizontally. Like, they will move with the wind, and
Right.
they will sway and like move rocket around. Like, it's and then a third part is that there's another video and people are ignoring that, and that other video does demonstrates like some bizarre behavior also. I think that one might be like over the water or something.
One in the
Um
water. Hmm.
yeah, and I think that there's a lot of questions still. Like, I don't know what it is. It's definitely bizarre looking. It's not the only bizarre looking video. And it's something other people have seen. Like, other people have described seeing something that looked like a jellyfish, or they call it the Medusa
Hmm.
jellyfish. So I think there's a lot of questions. I'm never gonna be really good about saying yes, 100% think that's this or that. I can't. I'm
Well, we
not
don't know.
capable. Yeah.
We don't know what it is. Julie thinks it's my hair. What happened to my hair? Julie, I can assure you that that is actually not my hair, because if it were, I would have been chasing it and going, "Come back, please come back." So, yeah, and that was my act. If any producers are out there, that was sort of my acting chops. Um, but Julie is pointing out some Debs that people on the ground. So the Marine Corps officer said, who was there, the intel officer, that they could not see it with their naked eye.
You know what else is kind of interesting to me about this? Is that people are bringing up some of the other balloons that are in the works. And I was actually one of the first people to put that information out. But it also, if you do any research on this, you find out that those balloons don't go out of a building. They're in a building. Like, they're not capable of what we saw in that film. So I don't know. I just feel like, it probably wouldn't be a drone because it's much too complicated to be a drone. It,
Right. And it's missing some of those vital elements, such as propulsion, that we would be able to see in that spectrum.
right, and it doesn't move like a balloon to me. Like, I've seen
Right.
balloons in the sky. They don't move
You
straight like
have?
that. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I have.
Oh, wow. This is a whole nother observable we got to get trained up on. I'm not going to spend too much time on the debunkers, because they're not really worth my time, and they're not really trying to figure this out.
Mhm.
They're scared of what this could be, because we don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I know what it's not. I know it's not a balloon, and I know it's not something like that. It's not a piece of mylar, just like the rubber duck was not, um, because the rubber duck was being analyzed by a sensor operator that worked for DHS that had thousands of hours of experience looking through that sensor to come up with, "Oh my God, I don't know what this is." And that's how he got in touch with Andy and allowed him to release a couple of films. So that's the idea. The whole idea is that people who know what they're looking at know that they don't know what this is, and they don't know its origin. They know what it's not. The debunkers, all of a sudden, who don't know anything and have no expertise, profess to know what it is, but they don't, unfortunately. So that's the situation. So I don't spend too much time on them. I'd rather kind of talk about what it is. I think one of your points, though, Deb, that I find very cogent is that if they would have showed the whole thing, what you're talking about, where they would have shown it going transmedium and going in the water and coming out, which is what the Marine Corps officer that George and Jeremy brought on the show, because he was there, he saw it happen live. If they would have shown that, then it would have convinced, or at least maybe in theory would have swayed some of these people who try to debunk everything that comes out that's real, just like they try to do with those pyramid UFOs that are 100% legitimate. And I know that because I know what the military's actual assessment of that was, and I've seen that. So, yeah, but unfortunately, people, they're scared and they want to do this. So I don't waste my time trying to convince them. I'm more concerned with talking about what it is, because that thing was weird looking, scary. I'm
You know
seeing
what
some
though?
predator business.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to say what some of these things are. Like some
Mm,
people, I like to leave the anomalous to this, right? Because it was as soon as someone attributes a label, like any other possibility is thrown out, right? Like as soon as someone says, "Oh, that was a saucer," someone's going to say, "Oh
mhm.
yeah, well then there's aliens," right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, the
so
truth is we don't know. We don't know where it's from.
right. And that's why the debunking doesn't work because we're studying
Right.
unidentified objects. And you can't tell someone who cannot identify an object that it's not unidentified. It's such a weird thing to say, right?
Yeah, I mean they want us to say that it's from a non-human until, or we want to say it's extraterrestrial or something. I don't know what it is. I can tell you what it's not, in my opinion, based on what I know about aircraft. And those aren't conventional crafts. So they're probably from some sort of a non-human intelligence, at least current day modern humans. Could it be the future us? Yes. Could it be the past us? Maybe. I don't know, but I'm just going to, for a catch-all, I'll call it NHI because it's exhibiting characteristics that we have not developed yet. Particularly when, you know, if people could try to imagine and think in terms of hypersonics, let's say that we have hypersonic. Let's say that we have hypersonics, but we wouldn't be able to go hypersonic from a standstill. That's a technology that we don't have. And let's, for the sake of discussion, let's say that we could. Let's say we had something that could go hypersonic from a standstill, that we had developed this technology. We haven't developed a technology that doesn't interact with the air around it so that it would not produce a sonic boom. I don't believe we have a technology that is unaffected by air and can accelerate through water at speeds that, from a hydrodynamic standpoint or a hydrostatic drag standpoint, we wouldn't be able to do. That's what Tim Gallaudet and the folks that he's interviewed are telling him, by going several hundred knots underwater. That's like as fast as like a 747 that's cruising across the Atlantic, but it's doing it underwater. We haven't figured that out. So that's the part, is that even, let's say we have something that could exist at that speed, it couldn't do it without creating a sonic boom or interacting with what we know is our atmosphere, our oxygen and nitrogen, that forms the air. So, what do you think
So,
about that, Debs? What do you
oh, I
think?
was going to say, what's interesting is another piece of news that I was going to mention was that the three body has come out. And three body comes from the three body problem. There was a Prime version, and the Netflix version is now out, right? And it's taking the whole concept of UAPs and engagement with NHI to a very scientific place. And yeah, and I understand, of course, it's fiction, but if you understand how China approaches UAP, they do it from a scientific perspective. They just think it's part of science. So I'm hoping that with some of these new objects, the SEU will take a look at them and come up with some more papers like they did for the previous videos. Maybe they'll come out with one about this jellyfish, the Medusa, right?
Mm,
Um, and
yeah.
and and really come to that same conclusion that we have nothing that does what these things are doing. I hope
Oh
so.
man, we have not seen you in a while, Wirona Farm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like you haven't been in a while, but welcome. So if you're watching us, and we'll talk about that in pick up on Deb's point here in a second. If you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, if you would do us a solid, go to the YouTube video and what's up? Oh, wait a minute. I don't know. Is that Courtney? No, I'm just kidding. Um, if you would do us a solid and go to YouTube and give us a subscribe and a like, we'd greatly appreciate it. Pretty soon here in a month or so, we're going to, or May 9th, I guess, is our debut on the Untold Radio Network. Super excited about that. Be formal announcements coming. But yeah, if you'd please go to that, give us a like and subscribe. We don't appreciate you. I'm sorry, Deb. Back to your point, my friend. Which one we're talking about? Oh, three body problem. Yeah.
Okay, so what's interesting
And
though, I
SCU.
want to say, I wanted to comment though that the Netflix version is very different from the previous one that I watched, which was the Chinese version on Prime. Um, and you could argue that you lost something in the translation, but it still gets to the crux of it. A very, very scientific approach to how these things are possible. They talk about, quantum dimensions. They talk about thinking in terms of dimensions, in terms of size. It gets really interesting, and I think it kind of brings the subject to the public in a new way.
Yeah. I have not seen the film, nor have I read the book, just because I don't know. There's something about it I kind of thought weirded me out, but anything that brings eyeballs and opens people's eyes to the possible is great because then that's one less experiencer of the UAP phenomenon. The folks that are monitoring Bigfoot out in the woods that are seeing orbs and or Bigfoot himself, and they go and tell someone about it. And man, there's so many people that get, laughed at or they just kind of get a nod, and you kind of know when someone thinks you're full of it. And frankly, I've shared some of these videos that I've shared with the cabbies with friends, and they're just not. Um, they really don't want to entertain this topic. Um, and I think, Deb, I like the fact that this film is out there and it can maybe insidiously bring someone in without them really knowing it. Um, what do you think about that? That people just don't want to entertain this? Is that okay?
I think when you are just going through the day to day and dealing with the day to day emergencies, it's just too much to go there, Like it's the same though. There are people who don't want to deal with religion right now. They don't want to deal with um politics right now. They don't want to deal with any additional topics. I don't
Mm,
think um but then with this topic, and I was mentioning this in the last show a little bit, it's like people are, how do I put it? Like it's overwhelming. Like there's just so much of the same. Like there's UFOs, there's UFOs. We get it. There's UFOs. So they're like,
mhm.
okay, there's UFOs. I'm going to keep paying my bills. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
So where's the shift? Where does there need to be a shift,
I
and
think,
potentially why?
I think if we can stick with facts, like we talked about also in the last episode, and really stop trying to sensationalize it and kind of put brakes on like the fakes and the CG and just kind of take it seriously and let people talk. Like that's a big one. Just let people talk about it. Um, then people can sort of normalize the subject instead of avoiding it. It'll be like talking about the weather. Oh yeah, there was a UFO outside
Hmm.
today.
Yeah, check out Nikki Noel on Facebook. My goodness. Excuse me, on Twitter. Nikki Noel has get some incredible videos outside her house. I don't know what it is. She's like Chris Bledsoe, man. She's just got them buzzing outside her house all the time, daytime, nighttime. Nikki Noel on Twitter. Who she was on with somebody not too long ago. I can't remember. What do you think?
That sounds good. I have seen some really interesting videos and photos that are not in the public because
Ooh,
people message me them, but I never share them because I don't have that permission to do it. So I
gotcha.
have seen like civilian videos of Tic Tacs and things like that. Um, I w- I was just gonna say though that imagine our country taking this subject on like they do the weather and it just being part of the weather report. Like imagine it just being included.
Take it another step though, Deb. Why is that important? Why do you think it's important that people know?
I think if we know, then no one's gonna suffer from shock. Like if it becomes normal, it's not gonna be something that freaks people out anymore. It's a subject that we can just have over the dinner table. Oh yeah, there were like 5 UFOs over Arizona last week. Oh, that's interesting. Cool. Like, or what
Hmm.
do you think that's about? Why do you think there are 5 UFOs? Just having that conversation and being open. Um, I know that when it comes to my family, they would love to just shut it down. Also, they were very quick to send me all of those articles about the new Arrow report and how, obviously this means there's nothing to this. They just jumped on that because
Unfortunate.
so I don't talk to them anymore about it. That's the repercussion. I won't go to them about it.
I've heard you use the words many times before. We need to prepare people. Why is that? Why is
So
that
there's
important?
this dream that a lot of experiencers talk about that they have. It's a shared dream. They dream about just a massive number of sightings happening at the same time. If we don't prepare people for something like that, if like the potential for that, um, if we don't prepare people for the potential of thinking outside of just human and humanoid and all that, they're going to have what I call like a traumatic response. Their world will unravel. They will have, and I will say it, ontological shock, right?
Party people, put those hands together for Carolina
Hi,
Garcia.
Hey,
welcome.
Can I get
Patty.
a
How's it
hey,
going? How
Amen.
is it
man?
going?
Yeah,
I
we're
am literally, I've been listening to you guys. I've got my daughter watching something in the background. Vinny's doing his podcast in the other room. And
Vinny, can you remind? Just kidding. Vinny
you know that
Adams, the
guy?
host of Disclosure Team.
That guy, yeah, he's all right. I mean, he's
Yes.
okay. But
Your future husband.
yeah, I guess that's what's going to happen,
Like, yes, if my girlfriend
But
he's gonna get down on his knees, give me a ring. Uh,
but Deb, so you were touching on the Arrow report, and I really want to know more about that. I'm literally just popping in just because I've been wanting to chat with you guys for so long, and so I don't know when like things can get crazy around here any second, but
yeah.
I
Deb's talk about the error report to my
yes,
Okay.
homie,
tell
the
me the
descendant of
Arrow
Francisco
report,
Pizarro.
and then
So
I know, and then I'm gonna hop after this. So the Arrow
Sure.
report, and then I want to know specifically, after this report has come out, what do you think their role is going to be? Is there a need for them? What's going to happen
okay.
afterwards? But
Okay.
you
I'll
guys are
actually
amazing.
I'll answer that part
Thank you,
first.
homegirl.
Yeah, I'll answer
I,
that part first. The second part first. The Arrow report was written by a resolution office. Like people are, continuously associating unidentified flying objects, now known as UAPs, with Arrow. But Arrow's job is not to look into NHI. They're not interested in that. They would pass the buck if they found one immediately. And who knows where that would go, right? Area 51, who knows? But their interest is resolution. They want to resolve everything. So they will put something forth as a resolved fact, possibly because that's their best conclusion, or possibly to, dissuade people from being uncomfortable. Who knows what reason, right? But they definitely are not there to look for unidentified. They're there to identify, period. Right? So like I've pointed that out a few times on Twitter, by the way. Like they're not the unidentified group. Like that's not who you go to if you want unidentified. um, but the other thing that's happened with the Arrow report is apparently they didn't put a whole lot of depth of research into it. I'll you this will shock you, DJ. I have not read it. I don't feel like wasting my
Oh my
time.
God. Deb, come on. I mean, just think about how enlightened you'd be if you read it.
No,
Like, it
no,
would change
I
your
know
life.
better. But apparently there's just like some gross errors. Actually, I heard Kevin Knuth talking about it briefly the other day. Just some of the gross errors, like the most I would say the biggest case that we had that kind of laid the carpet out for this happening was the Kenneth Arnold case, right? And they've made errors about the object that he saw, the date that he saw it, and that's pretty bad. If you can't even
Right.
get the Kenneth Arnold case correctly,
You could Google it and see when he
right.
was flying in his Cessna and saw it.
I don't think, again, I should know more about things like that than the people who were hired to know about it.
Well, you care more.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like I want to say there's some people in Arrow who probably really do,
Sure.
but again, their job is not to care about NHI. That's not to care about civilians. Their job is to resolve. And if there's anything that they could ever not resolve, I imagine it would get shuffled somewhere else, and we wouldn't hear about it anyway.
So we're Rona. Tell me if I'm saying your name incorrectly. Actually, I might need to put my glasses on for this. Yeah, yeah. We're Runa Farm. Okay, we're Runa Farm. So for what it's worth, Green Street interviewed Sean Patrick, but so let's go back to when the office was formed, which I don't know. Okay, we were Runa Farm. Thank you, ma'am or sir. Let's go back to when and hello Anani T. Thank you very much for joining us again. We missed you. They said the craft Michael Herrera encountered was an ET craft. It wasn't. It was an ARV. Total BS report. Is Herrera the Marine Corps guy? Anon, that saw it over in was it Indonesia or Thailand? It was in the Far East Paycom Theater somewhere, I think. Anyway, yeah, school me up on that one. I think that's who Herrera is. But here's the thing. So yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw that when he was on with Sean. I can't remember his name. The Navy SEAL's got like 800,000 subscribers back then. He's probably got more now. Good for him. Anyway, so when this office was created, I don't know if it was the NDAA 2021 or 2022 NDAA, probably 2022, that created the office. And when they put it under the Department of Defense, which is, thank you, Sean Ryan. Yeah. The department that I've loved, that I've worked for and dedicated, 30 years of my life to or more. I still was a little bit skeptical because you have to, you have to be able to parse things out and say, well, I like this, but I don't like that, because life isn't black and white, right? It's the same color. What color are these? Some of these creatures that enter people's bedrooms, Deb?
There's gray, there's
That's right.
white.
That's right. Well, let's just hold on gray for a second. Yes, I know. There's reptilians, and we're not going to say the other one with the translucent skin and the long hair that look like they could be a model for hair conditioner. So, I have to be able to say what I love and also what maybe I'm skeptical about and don't have full faith in. And unfortunately, when they put that office under DOD, I mean, obviously, they don't work for Congress. Their boss isn't Congress. Their boss runs up through the SecDef, through the Joint Chiefs, through the service chiefs, and the secretaries of their services, because each, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force have a secretary as well that's under the SecTef, a civilian. So there are lines of they're sort of lines of responsibility, but they don't run to Congress. So they could say, "You're not my boss," you know. So I kind of was skeptical about that, and then after the first report, I was very disappointed. Although they did say that, I don't know, there was 4 things out of like 240 that they couldn't identify, etc. And then they just kind of, so I had no expectation for this one whatsoever. And I never thought that we were going to get a report every 6 months, the way that it was pointed out, and that they were actually going to reveal anything. So, unfortunately, um, not that the American people are the enemy, but in this case, the disclosure of the information is the enemy, and so therefore they're on the opposite side from that. Unfortunately, and that's what I guess they've been directed to do. And when you're in those offices, if you like your pension and you like your job, and I liked those things, you do what you're told. This is why
Hmm.
that Lou Elizondo was such a huge thing, is because he said, okay, you guys may want to do X, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to leave. And I'm going to resign my position and my pension and my TSP, which is a 10% match 401k that the government has. Beautiful thing. And I'm going to give it all up to come out and disclose to you people. For that, there are, and I hate to use this word on cab, morons in this community that said, oh, I think you're just a disinformation agent. Really? I just gave up a job and a pension worth a lot of money. Then you have, now he may get a small something. I don't know the amount of time he was in, because it has to do with your age. There's a lot of factors that go into the retirement. When you started, years of service, what grade you were, all these different types of things. Yes, the claim is Elizondo expected a bigger payday from TSS. Yeah, and guess what? If you want to go check out the TTSA website, none of those guys are there anymore. Hal Puthoff's not there. Steve Justice isn't there. Lou Elizondo isn't there. Jim Semivan is only on their board of advisory. So all these different things. Yeah, I was reading a book. You pick a service and challenge, set yourself apart. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Julie's playing some commercials. I love it. Julie's lighten the mood. Okay, so anyhow, then what Grush did, Grush was at the beginning of his career. He did not retire from the military like Lou. So this was going to be his first retirement. And had he stayed in the reserves long enough, because the calculations for reserve service are not the same as active duties. You have to do more than 20 years in order to get a retirement from the military when you're either reserve or guard, except in certain positions. Like pararescue, there's certain high demand, low density positions that you can actually serve and get the same multiplier, but they don't find pararescuemen growing on trees. So anyway, long story short, David Grush gave that up. He gave up both retirements that he would have had and his TSP and everything to come out and talk about this. My cat is back, Tamara.
Well, while you deal with your cat,
yes,
I
please.
wanted to take this opportunity to educate some people about what counterintelligence means, because I did some research, which I do. And basically what it means is that you're assigned to make sure that foreign adversaries don't know about your top secret program. It doesn't mean that your goal is to damage the public, or especially not the American public, which is extremely no, essentially, right? Unless you're, the NSA maybe. But anywho, the point is that he was hired to protect OSAP. And we've heard since all of this has happened that OSAP was striving to possibly move objects into a warehouse. I don't know if that's 100% the reason, but you have to watch over a project and make sure it's not getting leaked. And happy to say it did not, right? This information didn't come out even in the article because they just talked about ATIP. Now, ATIP was a couple of things. People forget that ATIP was working with the CIA eventually. Like John Ramirez told us that basically Lou was working with the CIA after OSAP ended. So it had funding, like obviously, and Lou told us it had funding. But my point is that he did something heroic. He protected a program. Then he came out when he realized that that program wasn't being taken seriously because it's extremely dangerous to be telling pilots not to report, especially in this day and age. Even if you don't believe in UFOs, even if you don't believe in UAPs, it is ridiculous to think that a pilot should not report seeing an object, because nowadays we do have things like Chinese spy balloons, as they say. You know, that's not what the Chinese claim it was, by the way. Still, they say it was a science balloon.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
Checking the winds up, checking the winds
Right.
aloft.
We do have drones that are in existence, phenomenal drones, by the way. So it is crazy that they were not allowing people to report. And that was one of the things that Lou was fighting against. How could you stop people from reporting that? How can you not take that seriously? That is extremely dangerous to not
And
take that seriously.
Deb, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
The last straw was he was working for James Mad Dog Mattis, who was the Secretary of Defense at the time, and his boss would not allow him to talk to Mad Dog Mattis and inform him of what he knew. So
that's so crazy to me.
That was a
like,
that was a capstone. That was when he wrote the resignation letter. I also want to say something to Wiruna Farm. So that rumor about the claim that Elizondo, I'm going to put this up on the screen, expected a bigger payday from TTSA. I want to say there is not a person that can confirm that, except for Lou, including. You could ask you could ask Sean Cahill. There's nobody that could confirm what he thought he was going to make. And I'll tell you why this is interesting. Because I was speaking with Rob Sheridan over the weekend. If you guys don't know, Rob Sheridan from Ireland, he's a disclosure advocate. He is a anti-debunker, if you will. And we were doing the math on, and give me some of the TTSA luminaries, if I've forgotten them, Debs. But let's just take a look at the core group, because was Chris Mellon one of them at one point?
Yes, temporarily.
Okay, he was. Okay, so we got our fingers here. So we have Lou Elizondo, we have Hal Puthoff, we have Steve Justice, who left Lockheed Skunk Works, right? We have Christopher Mellon, right? So, and who's the last person that I'm not thinking of now?
We interviewed him.
What's that? Jim Senevan.
Yes.
Okay. So 5 guys. So let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that they made $100,000 a year. Every one of those guys would be underpaid at $100,000 a year. Just think about that. Like, I made about that much with my position. I was below what Elizondo was making in government. So every one of those guys is underpaid at $100,000 a year. So that means DeLong had to bring in $500,000 just for 5 guys. Not even dealing with office expenses and travel and contracts personnel to be able to write proposals. Like, they had that proposal and won that Army contract that I think never went to fruition, etc. That's $500,000. Even Tom DeLonge, a musician, those guys are not going to want to come out of pocket and pay that much money every month. And I'm lowballing it at $100,000. I'm giving them the absolute minimum that those guys would have had to make. So there's no way that somebody thought that was going to be more fruitful. Lou did not leave because he thought he was going to make more from TTSA. He left because he was morally opposed to what they were asking him to do, and they would not let him brief the SecDef about what he knew. And although things may have, you heard about another government official, what was his name, Gary something or whatever, Debs, but that is what pissed him off and was the last straw when they said, you will not tell the boss what you know. And that's when he said, I'm out. And then they did these courageous things by releasing these videos. Otherwise, I'm probably not on air with you right now. And I could probably name you a dozen shows that wouldn't be on the air right now. Excuse me, that wouldn't be on the air right now were it not for them doing that, which energized this entire movement. There wouldn't have been this movement if they didn't get those 3 videos released.
It reminds me of that show, Don't Look Up. The whole.
I didn't see it.
Yeah,
that would be scary.
So it was again on Netflix, and the premise is that people are trying to warn people that something bad is going to happen to the planet, and a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, okay, well, we're going to keep moving about and ignore you and go about our day, and it's just like, this is craziness. Like, how can you ignore this information?
Well, it's because they have a different agenda. Their agenda is to and remember, Lou has said himself, a lot of these people believe that they're doing something patriotic because a lot of people can't handle it. And you've got to admit, Deb, that when Dave Grush came out with his comments, you and I saw some of our colleagues, people that are hosting major UFO shows, start to melt down just a little bit over what he revealed. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, I think, I have mixed feelings about responses. I just see such strange behaviors happening. Like, people who are really into this topic will fight on one other aspect of it. They don't want to talk about that part. I think people
you're right. It's mixed.
Yeah, I think people are really complicated. Like, they don't want to, some people really want to talk about the nuts and bolts and then get upset if someone talks about what they call the woo, right? And some people get really upset if someone says aliens, or some people take offense at the use of interdimensional as a label. That's me. I'm one of those. People are complicated. They're not responding in a way you would expect. I think my approach is also very different, though, DJ. Like, I think that's my issue with this whole line of thinking. I just am like, okay, there's UFOs. What's the big deal? Let's just go figure it out. Why are we acting weird about this?
Well, we all have hangups, Deb. I mean, I've got hangups, things that I'm hung up about. And you just mentioned one. You just revealed one of yours. You said you don't like it when people use the term interdimensional, right? Is that correct?
Yes, because I told you it's just, if you break down what they're saying, it's just like, this isn't a very strong argument.
Well, we don't, but we just don't know, right? Remember what Steve said on Matt's podcast, right? That scientist Steve. We don't know anything he said, right? So, I mean, and there are people who know. We have some experiencers who know some things. The government knows some things. If Jim Semivan said it on our show, and he's an experiencer. He goes, nobody knows it all. He goes, they don't know it all. We don't know it all. We only know what we know, right? And it could be that, and I have certain pet peeves as well. So I'll share one of mine. But you get uncomfortable when people use language that's not definitive, and you don't understand exactly what it means, and it kind of irritates you. For me, I'll tell you, I don't want to mention somebody because I don't want to cast any aspersion, but there is someone in the community, who I regard, who I respect, but they'll kind of make assertions, and I don't know that there's necessarily a basis for that person's assertions that are as strong as they are. But you know what? There are things that I say that probably irritate other people. My certainty that the Tic Tac was this sort of craft that was not, one of our adversaries or ours, that it was from some other intelligence. How do you know, DJ? That just pisses you off. Okay, I don't know how I know. I just believe that I know. Maybe I'm wrong. I 100% believe I'm right, but maybe I'm wrong. But that my certainty probably irritates people. Me defending Lou and Grush probably irritates people who don't trust the government. There's a lot of us people who have worked for government that don't trust certain aspects of the government, but it's our government.
They're all going to buy his book no matter what. I know it.
What's that?
No matter what they say, they're going to buy his book too.
Oh, good. Imagine when Grush writes a book, right? That'll take 4 years to get through Dopser. So yeah. And Sean Cahill's like, oh, it's from Sean. They throw it across the desk. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it's just, we all just have to be sensitive to one another's hangups. And if we can do that the way Julie does it, we can have a conversation. Dave Scott, her friend, my friend, well, he's not my friend, but we've spoken, and I really like Dave, and I respect and regard Dave Scott. He is very, very triggered by a certain person from SCU that tried to dismiss experiencers, which is ridiculous and absurd, and that person should keep their mouth shut. Not keep their mouth shut, but it was very irresponsible, and that person should apologize to Dave Scott. At the same time, that really has irritated Dave Scott against government people, right? But both things are true. That experiencers are super important, and some of these government people who decided to put their backside on the line to come out is also important. The problem is that we want to take one side or the other. We have these biases, and if we can just go, let's just kind of, flow back and forth. Kind of reminds me of certain aspects of the airplane I used to fly, the fuel control module, and how it had bias and slope and all these kinds of things to keep the fuel just where it needed to be. And the propeller just at the proper torque and RPM. So that's Dave works too much. Yeah, Dave works a lot, no doubt. He has another job, a regular job, in addition to being on radio like 5 days a week. Hardworking guy. I love the guy. He's a Bigfoot experiencer. He has been out in the woods and had genuine experiences with Bigfoot. He has had UFO. He's a trifecta. UFO experiences and paranormal. I would just say to my friend Dave, and if we get him on air, and I'm sure we will, he's told me he wants to get me on their show, which I don't know why he would, but if he does, I would go on there. Is that, don't worry about one idiot who said experiencers should get out of the way. Experiencers should never get out of the way. And he's a trifecta. He's had paranormal, Bigfoot, and UFOs. Very, very valuable. And also the government people are very, very, very valuable. And also the airline pilots who have never been military or seeing things are very valuable. And so is Ryan Graves and all of his colleagues. And so is Nikki Noel, who's just standing outside her house and doing this with her phone. And so is Chris Bledsoe. And so is Skinwalker Ranch. And so is people who have been to Bradshaw Ranch. And so is Carl Vibe, who's going to be coming on with us. So you see, and our researchers like Deb, who have had only one sighting, like myself. But so everybody is important and everybody plays the role.
Yeah, so I think of it as puzzle pieces, right? It's all pieces of the puzzle. And if you discard a piece, and I didn't discard quantum, I just the quantum physics part and the dimensions thing, I just didn't appreciate when I researched into it what they were trying to say, but it inspired other things because I didn't disregard it. It inspired other thoughts and other possibilities and other ways of thinking about things. So we can't disregard. All of those things are important. And it's sort of like, I'm trying to figure out what's in this house, but I'm not going to go into some of the rooms.
Deb, we're back to the bathroom thing again. We don't have to go back to the bathroom at the restaurant in BMO. But anyway, no, No, I'm with you, Deb. I mean, we all just have to have self-awareness, right, of what triggers us. Just watch the Brandon Fugel interview on Sean Ryan's show. He was fantastic, man. I'm gonna tell you, Weruna Farm, and we're already over now. I expect you to be signing off by now, but I've told people you could put any two of us on air and we can do an hour just like that. I mean, it's we just need to get warmed up, and here we go. So, a couple things about Brandon Fugel. He is so incredibly genuine and such a lovely human being. Our friend Tim from All Things Unexplained has just booked him. Tim and CJ. I don't think Smitty is going to be there because I think he's going to be teaching school when they interview Brandon, but they've just booked Brandon and they're going, hey, how's it going, brother? And they are going to, I'll read your comment in a second, Dave, because when Dave Smothers is in the house, you read his damn comments, okay? He's from Manchester. He'll slap you up. Anyway, Brandon Fugel is such a lovely person. Thank you, Jules. Thank you so much, love. I'm sorry about the power issues, and thank you for doing what you do, as always. Cheers. I want to have Brandon on, not because he's a rich guy and not because he owns Skinwalker Ranch. That is not enough for me to want somebody on Cab, and you know this to be true, Deb, but he's just such a nice person.
He is. I got to meet him. I got to meet him at the third New York conference for Anomalous Inquiry, and he was very nice.
The problem is Deb gets to meet everybody. And what about me, Debs? I mean, where do I fit in?
I met you. I've met Lou. I've met Courtney. I've met like these are big people, right?
Please.
Yeah. So if you guys ever get to go to one of those New York conferences, there's a lot of incredible people that go.
The best thing about it is what, Deb?
I think it's getting to find out what those people are really like. For me, that's the best. But getting to also take it in an academic approach, like we're raising the bar about these topics.
You're not even going to talk about our dinner? That was the best thing.
Oh yeah, the dinner we got.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was. You know what? They don't do that, I don't think, every time anymore now. But they did have the supper club meeting afterwards. So all these people getting to hang out afterwards and talk about this topic without the pressure and the family stigma and all that stuff is great.
I can guarantee you that if Debs and I go to another one of these Inquire Anomalous symposiums, there will be a dinner afterward. I mean, just guarantee it. So just be ready. Okay, let me read Dave Smothers because you have to. Okay. I think the issue, DJ, is people... Should I do it in his accent? I think the issue, DJ, is people speak simplistic about the government. And if it's one thing, as if it's one thing, I think you can criticize the government wrongdoers without criticizing the whole government as a whole. I'm sorry, Dave. That was a terrible impression. I really need to work on it because I've always felt like you sound a lot more like a member of the Beatles from Liverpool. So I apologize for such a poor dissertation. Yeah, you're right. The government is multifaceted. First of all, there are many, many, many amazing patriots. I couldn't be more proud of any job that I've ever had as I was working for government, whether I was in the uniform or out of the uniform. And there's also, like society, there's some people there that aren't so good, but the overwhelming majority of them are good. And yeah, you got to criticize, like he says, the government wrongdoers. And there are some of those that unfortunately are complicit. It's easy for me to say because we don't know what kind of threat maybe went against Mr. Kirkpatrick. I don't know. But we can criticize him without being, trying to deep six the entire human being that is him. Maybe something was said to him that made him think, oh my God, Daniel Lee Barnett's in here. Okay, so Daniel, the gentleman right above you, David Smethurst. I don't know if he's going to be on the round table with you, but that is David Smethurst of Manchester, and Daniel Lee Barnett is from, I don't know. Are you from Somerset? I can't remember where you're from. Anyway, hey, how's things going, mate? How's the book? I haven't read your book yet. If you, Daniel, I got to talk to you about what's going on in my life and my problems. And next time we talk, I got to tell you about what's going on.
You
But
know what? Can
anyway,
I comment on something that about what David
yeah,
is saying?
sure,
So,
please.
I recently watched a documentary series about a reporter who dies, and he dies in a way that is questionable because he had uncovered this whole group of people that were trying to profit off of um, Native American off a a Native American reservation.
Hmm.
And the reason they were on the reservation was because they were outside of some of the laws. And it turned out a lot of these people were former government employees. Now, people talk about like the shadow government and stuff, but no one talks about the fact that people who are still connected and still know how to do an op sometimes leave the government, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
and they are not all still in the government just because they have friends that are in the government. They still have all the connections, but they may not have the moral compass. In fact, that's one of the reasons that was implied those people had to leave, but they still had all those skills. So there's not just government to be afraid of, but people who have those connections and those skills, right? Not that I'm trying to scare anyone, right? Oh yeah, and um, it's mentioned here in the chat.
Hmm.
Maruna mentions it. American Conspiracy:
Yep.
The Octopus Murders.
Yep. Yeah. I saw that. I don't know. I can't really. I watched most of it, not all of it. I think I was too busy on the computer, didn't pay enough attention to it. But I'm sure there's something there, but I don't know what's there. I'd really need to pay close attention and really dissect it. So I don't want to offer an opinion of it. But
I I think my
yeah,
point though
yeah.
is just like when people talked about the shadow government, I was like, ah, phew, sounds like a conspiracy theory. Then I
Hmm.
watched that and I'm like, I didn't think about this. You really could just create a whole network because you already have the contacts, you already have friends in government with power and tools, etc. And like it is a scary possibility, right? This could be how a subject that is out of government hands, but is still connected to the government could exist, right? So
Well,
I don't know.
I
I just
think
wanted
the
to throw that
program.
out there.
Yeah, yeah, I think the programs, the UFO programs, could be something like that, right? That is
Exactly.
existing outside of law. So I can't rule it out. I can't rule it out. Because these are operating on budgets. It's not accounted for in our national defense budget and so forth. It's not included in the POM because when it is in the POM, which is the program of memorandum, where basically, real quickly, what happens is that every entity, like let's say Air Combat Command, that has all the fighter planes in the Air Force's inventory, they will put forth their desires and their requirements to the Air Force to see we need all these programs funded. Then AFSOC will put them forward, and Global Strike Command, and um, I'm trying to think of the other Air Force Materiel Command. So everybody will put forth this is what we want out of this year's national defense budget, and the Air Force will make a cut line. And if you're below that cut line, it means your program went unfunded. Okay, and that goes up through the Air Force, and it goes up through the DoD, and they prioritize all these different in the POM what we're actually going to fund. The problem is that these UFO programs appear to be, and according to Grush, they're being funded, but our lawmakers don't know that they're being funded, and that's what pisses them off so badly.
Yeah, I
So,
know that they're a little
yeah.
mad about what's going on with the money, right? Like even UFOs aside again, what is going on with all this money? Like, why is someone charging $100 for a pickle? Like it's almost like hospital billing. Something
Right.
sketchy is definitely happening with the money.
No question. Well, what's happening is they're calling it something else. That the lawmakers believe that they are funding. I'm not even going to put a name to it, but we'll just call it Program X. But then underneath it, what they're really funding is Program XY. And the problem is that the lawmaker needs to know what is comprised of Program X that they're funding, and they just don't know about the tangent, the Program Y that's underneath there. They're just being told to fund this program. So that's what the problem is.
Yeah. I
And
think the CIA
with
still doesn't have to report their funding, if I'm correct. I don't know if that's
um,
changed, but I think they may
I
be outside of having to report at all.
well, you have the Gang of Eight that are red in. These people have TSSCI clearances, and they are so nobody doesn't have to report. So I'll say that that's false. They have to know where that money's going to. There are a lot of things that are existing and being funded under those programs that you're not going to go down to the granular level. You're funding a program. Now, how the CIA chooses to use their money, now there's certain things that procurement money has to be used for procurement. You can't use that for operation and maintenance. This I was told when I worked in government. And if it's funding for operation and maintenance, you can't say, "Oh, I want to turn around and buy a new armored vehicle with that," because that's procurement money. So I was told that if you do that, you could end up in an orange jumpsuit. But the problem is that under operation and maintenance, there may be programs that are, and it appears there are programs that are using it for something other than what it was intended for. To make a long story really short. But by and large, you have to understand that just like people that that's all the government is made up from is people just like your neighbor, your mom, your dad, your friend. You may think these people are different than you. By and large, they're just normal Americans, just like the rest of us, and that there are overwhelmingly great people that I was honored to serve with. And obviously, in any organization, there are going to be some bad apples. The other thing I want to say about the notion of contractors having craft is this. If you give a craft to a contractor, and when I say give, mean you sign it over to them, then they own that craft. You no longer have interest in that craft and whatever they're able to derive from that craft. The way that you take advantage of it is when you put them under contract to work on that craft, and now you can decide what happened. They don't even need to report to you what they find out about that craft. But when you put it under contract, then you can demand and make certain demands based on giving a contractor money to look at a craft and evaluate it and analyze it and back engineer it. Once you divorce yourself from it, if you just gave it to them, now by law, you have no interest in it. And you can't ask them, "Hey, why don't you tell us what you figured out, or give us that technology that you figured out?" So just keep that in the back of your mind.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
always
Last question.
I
I'm
want
sorry.
to
Go ahead, man.
point out that in that case, if it's in a contract or it's in private hands, it's not foilable, right? But
Um, it's not foiable because it's classified. Let's say that it's not in contractor hands. Let's say it's sitting at Area 51, just like Bob Lazar said. You think you can FOIA about that?
I know there's another reason, of course, obviously national security is the big one. But I'm
Right.
saying if you put it in private companies, like there's stuff that is considered untouchable. They don't have to share anything.
Okay. Let, let me rephrase it. I have a top secret program that I'm running. Let's just set up a fake scenario. I'm running a top secret program in the government, and you decide to FOIA because someone who was under my employ told people that we have this program. Can you FOIA? Do they have to tell you what that program is, that top secret program?
No, I know they don't. I know
That's
they
right.
have, yeah, but
It
I'm saying that it would protect it even further if they,
but it's not doesn't need to be further. If
yeah.
you can't FOIA, it is protected. So if you wanted to FOIA what the tactical plan was for the Bin Laden raid, and you wanted to see those plans, I said, man, I'd like to see, I want to see what their layout was and what they used, that the SEAL Team 6 used to go make an ingress, and what their entire plan was for that mission. Can you FOIA it?
Hmm. No, but
You can't, because they're going to say, no, it's top secret and we're not going to show you. Because then if we gave it to you, then that means the enemy could see how we go and we attack a target. Do you see how it doesn't matter if whose hands it's in. It's the
you know what?
classification.
I have to say though, I just have to point out that it seems to me that there's some of this being taken to universities because the government works with the universities, and one of it's almost like in plain sight. Literally, some of the technology that we're talking about with UAPs, universities are working on. And it's
I
just like
don't
right there in front, like the meta materials with
well,
terahertz.
that's different. That's different than back and having a working craft, something like an entire craft. I've said all along, pieces of metal they're probably sending all over the place. Let them go ahead and look at that piece of metal and see if they can figure out the components and when that could, didn't what did Gary Nolan say about that piece, that the technology did not exist to put those two pieces of metal together in the way at the molecular or atomic level that when it was found in the 90s.
I know. I was just thinking how clever that is, though.
Yeah.
If you have universities working on these projects, then that's pretty public. So later on down the road, you can be like, well, whatever, the Duke University is already working on metamaterials. What are you saying? That's not a big deal. Or, DARPA was working on, um, interfacing with technology with our brain waves long time ago, which they were, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it was public. Like, so anything that people are like, oh, this is amazing, this is NHI, they can be like, oh, that's in the public because they put it there, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I can't. I don't know what all their tactics are or what their procedures are. Yes. I mean that absolutely possible. All I'm telling people is that people have long been saying the reason they're putting these materials into private companies to make it not foiable, and I'm saying it's not foiable now, no matter whose hands it's in. It's the classification that's the issue. It's not the whether or not it's foiable. You could foil about many things that you're not going to get an answer to because it's classified. If you could just FOIA anything that was classified, then that means nothing's classified. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's
Does
definitely
that make common
limitations.
sense? Does that make
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
sense?
it's limitations out the wazoo. I'm just
Yeah,
trying to I guess I'm just trying to put my analyst hat on and trying to
absolutely.
figure out what was going on as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to put it in a way that everyone out there that hasn't been in government can understand that. Things are classified up to a level. It doesn't matter. You could just like what we know about Dan Sherman. You could FOIA about that. Do you think they're going to tell us? Oh yeah, here was that program that he worked on. They're not going to tell us that. It doesn't matter whose hands it was in or what contractors were used or etc. It doesn't matter. But it's a very popular narrative though. So let's see what Dave has to say because Dave's going to make it so that I can't get out of here. I plan on being here in an hour. Dave's going to have me here till 9:30. I think in the 1960s, I might need my glasses. In 1980s, agency like the CIA used a network of ex-operatives and criminal networks to achieve their goals. It's fundamentally corrupt and crossing the Rubicon always does. Um, Dave, like, yeah, I mean, I don't know their modus operandi. I'm sure that there are contractors and ex operatives that have worked under contract to them. I wouldn't doubt it and wouldn't try to make an argument against it. Um, there is a name for self-funded. Is there a name for self-funded programs? I don't know what you mean by self-funded. So
He
if you
was
could
there was
define that.
discussion in the chat about, the shadow government concept, right? The people who still have all those connections, still have all that power, but they want to fund themselves, and so they can continue to do their operations. They might even be hired by the government occasionally to do an operation, but they're funding possibly through criminal means. And then um, David's got another tidbit in here about how they could be
Yes. That's
basically.
I agree with what Dave said there. That's what not only what I mean, that's not something that I know independently. I know because I've heard it from people like Dave Grush or Lou. So that yes, because I am not personally aware of stuff like that, but that's what they say. So I just know I've said to you guys before I knew the name David Grush. I have said to you guys there would have to be certain programs like that, and they would have to be operating outside the oversight of. Remember, we talked about the National Command Authority, the SecDef, the Joint Chiefs, et cetera, plausible deniability, and all that business. So yeah. All right. What do we got here? There
By
were
the
other
way,
programs.
DJ,
I'm sorry.
I
Mhm.
know of at least 3 ways now that someone can work outside of the law, and do these projects.
Have you been
One,
involved in these gangs, Deb?
well,
I'm sorry.
someone tipped me off to another one. I'm not even thinking I should tell you guys on the podcast, but there are at least the
Don't
international
don't
waters being one of
don't
them,
don't
right?
don't tell us. I don't want to get in trouble any more than. All right, programs that were allegedly funded from World War II gold from Japan and drug trafficking. That's hard to know the truth. Yes, I mean, yeah, I mean, I didn't want to get into like a government wide. Yes, Iran Contra definitely was an example. Yeah, I think Oliver North and I don't know I don't remember all the players. That was around 87, I think, when that trial happened. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't want to get into an entire show about shadow government and stuff, but just try to provide some insight. Like I said, like any organization, there's a few bad apples, but there's some amazing people there, and their results show when you look at how few attacks we've had from overseas on foreign soil. The fact that no one's ever flown a successful air mission over the 48 states and so forth. So some might say that balloon was, but obviously they deemed that not a threat, or they would have taken it out. You know, they were probably trying to avoid areas of population when they took it down, I would imagine. Anyway, again, I've said before, I don't know what their thought process or what decision matrix they went through, so I'm not going to second guess them because I don't. And you kind of sound like a Monday morning quarterback when you do that, and I just don't know what. There were probably many things that the Joint Chiefs and the SecDef were telling the president, and they made the decision to do it when they did it, where they did it, and I don't know what those factors were. So I would just be like, just like running my mouth if I were to try to criticize them. They did it when and where they thought it was best for whatever reasons that they had and
You know,
information that they had.
this reminds me of why Game of Thrones was so successful. People are just intrigued by the intrigue. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
why this conversation keeps happening. We're just fascinated by this world. And it's a mystery in and of itself. Now, I can tell you, I've been a person that has gone to the Pentagon, and I've been a person around government people before. It is not that exciting. So, but
Mm,
there's like a lot
sure.
of unknowns, and when people don't know something, it's intriguing, and that's why
Yes.
we keep having these conversations about it. And
Yeah.
also, people are always trying to lump this stuff into conspiracy, but some of the truths are more outlandish and bizarre than the conspiracies.
Yeah.
So,
There are things that I did not think were true, wouldn't have thought was true. And when Grush said it, there were things that I had to take back. Basically, I had that discussion with Nathan about the whole agreements thing, that there may have been agreements made with non-human intelligence. And I'm like, that's BS. I don't believe that. I don't believe such and such president would do that. And then David Grush came out and said it to Ross Coulthart. So that's where I was wrong. And it's very important out there, all of us, to come out and say, if you're right about something, by all means say, well, I hit that one right, got that one right. Also come out and say when you were wrong. Because if you don't, you're going to be like some of these debunker guys where they're proven wrong and they just want to go on and just keep telling the same story because it's like branding. I'm human. I'm fallible. I'm right sometimes and I'm wrong sometimes. And if you come out and say that when you're right and you're wrong, then people will trust you. If you only tell people when you are right, they'll know you're full of it. That's the bottom line. Because they'll know that that's the only time they're going to hear from you is when you hit it right. Sometimes we're wrong, more often
Are you
than not.
saying that there could be interdimensional beings?
I guess, Deb, I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility, right? We're open to the possibility.
Okay.
I don't want to sound like the flesh and blood Bigfoot. No, there's nothing other abilities that they have. I'm telling you, it's just you know what? Flesh and blood breathing creature may have some glowing eyes for all I know, or be able to project its mind. Who knows? They may have abilities that we just haven't figured out yet. It appears that they do. I'm open to it, but damn, it's a flesh and blood creature. What other abilities does it have? Might have several for all we know. Other abilities that we just can't explain, and there are humans that have abilities that we also can't explain. There are extraordinary people among us. There are probably extraordinary Bigfoot among big feet, or Bigfoots, I should say. Deb, parting shots, my friend.
Hey, I wanted to say thank you to all the people in the chat for coming and throwing down some info. And of course, it's like it is like a reunion, like Julie said in the beginning, right? Because the last time it was just you and me was when I did my first episode for Deb's Data Dojo, long time ago.
Oh, I didn't know that. That was the last time it was just you and me?
I think so, because no, I think we've just had other people ever since then. So yeah, this is kind of like a reunion for that.
Deb, it's a pleasure. Here in July, we're going on. Let's see, so it's April, May, June. So we're 4 months away from our third year anniversary of CAB. We done got us on ourselves on a network. We're going to be on Untold Radio Network as of May 9th. We are joining Doug Hychek and all of his other shows. Thank you. Thank you, Anani T. It's always a pleasure to have you. Dave Smether staying up late. Hopefully his wife doesn't hear him typing. And he says the truth is there's two narratives, DOD Arrow versus Grush Elizondo. Both can't be right. We're at the point where before the truth wave collapses. Okay.
I know which part. I'm going to go ahead and go surf on the wave with the people who care about making sure pilots are allowed to report.
Yeah, the DOD came out with DOD-wide guidance. You saw that, right?
Yeah, and we talked about it was pretty soon after all this hit the fan that you informed me that the Air Force had a formal report coming, but it's just still ridiculous that they had to go through all that to make that happen.
Yeah, but we haven't had, to my knowledge, a DOD. It was just released, 2-3 weeks ago? We had a DOD-wide procedure. So it doesn't matter whether you're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, you will report on this standard form. Yes, Arrow is included on who you will give it to, unfortunately, but that's at least we have a standard form. That's more of an acknowledgement to people that something exists that pilots can't explain. And that should give you pause. I won't say it should excite you, but anyway, Deb's all right. We can't do cabbie goodbyes because we're all cabbies, but
we can wave to each other, wave goodbye to each other. I'm doing it right now.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Julie. I hope the power came back. Thank you, Dave. We're Uniform. At least UFO reports only go. At least UFO reports only go to Bigelow.
They used
Yeah, that
to.
was what. Yeah, used to. Yeah, that was like, I don't know. Was that through MUFON? If you reported to
No,
MUFON, it went to
that
Bigelow.
was through the FAA.
FAA. Thank you. I forgot about that. Right. Yeah. I'll tell you, we're Uniforms all over it, man. Thank you, Dave. Thank you everybody who stopped in. If you would please hit the like button, hit the Bob Marley, Irie man. I'm on UFOs. I'm on the UFOs a real team. A lot of money involved. Let's find some evidence, man. I'm with you. There's plenty of evidence out there. More than enough evidence to, if we were using the criminal, I've used this in Bigfoot a lot. But if the standard of evidence were beyond a reasonable doubt, we would have enough witnesses and enough footage exists out there now that you could secure a criminal conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. Just like when you combine Bigfoot with expert testimony from the late John Bindernagel or Jeff Meldrum, his 300-foot casts, the Patterson Gimlin film, and a dozen or so experiencers and some DNA results, you could get a criminal conviction that Bigfoot is real. You could do the same with UFOs. So a lot of people, every person has a different standard of evidence that they're looking for. To someone who has a great deal of fear about this being real, you are not going to be able to meet that standard. I sparred with a guy who said, Christopher Mellon, he hasn't given us nothing, man. Call us back when you got something. I was like, dude, you wouldn't know evidence if it slapped you in the face. He's like, try me. You want to
DJ,
try
I have a good
and
example of this.
And I said to the guy, well, I gave him all that evidence that I gave you, and it's still not enough. So you want to go up and touch the craft and then see it fly? That's not happening. Not in this lifetime. It's the evidence is what it means to you. If you're scared of this and you think this is not a real thing, there ain't no evidence that you're going to get that is going to suffice for you. That evidence doesn't exist. It does exist, but you're never going to get to it. So anyway, go ahead, ma'am.
I was going to say that I have this example, and this wraps us to the beginning of the show. Remember, we talked about, unfortunately, we lost my bridge, and I'm very sad. I told someone about it. They didn't believe me. 100% thought I was not telling the truth. I showed them the video, and they immediately said, that's fake. That is not true. That is a fake video. That is CG. It was not, by the way. I can assure you, the bridge is gone. But the point being,
it's an amazing example you just made. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
amazing.
I think that's the point, though, that if you don't want to believe it, you're not going to believe it, and you're going to just jump to whatever is going to make you feel better. But I have to just point out that again, and there's been heavy coverage of this. The people who say they don't believe, they profit from that stance, that lack of belief, that point of view. They profit from it too. They have conferences, they have articles about their skepticism, they have alliances, they have guerrilla warfare, apparently, because of the guerrilla skeptics. They're controlling Wikipedia. They make books. They write books. I just want to point out they profit from that stance too.
100%. 100%, Debs. You're right. So people just need to know and understand that. And I'm not saying believe us. Your standard of evidence is whatever your standard of evidence is. I'm just saying this is not fake. All these things are not happening. And all this legislation and all these pilots and everything, all this is not happening because there's nothing there. It's happening because there's something there that we don't understand and we don't know what it is. That may scare you, like jumping off a bridge would scare me with a bungee tied to my back, but it's just the way it is. Um, it's hopefully we can all just put our heads together and try to figure out little bits and pieces. That's why it is, to stitch all the way back, it's so important to talk to these experiencers, because they hold the key. They are the ones that have experienced this, have spoken to something, have seen more than what we've seen. Um, and whatever little keys that we can get to them that they remember, that's good for us. So Deb, our hour-long show went pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, we had a lot to cover. I don't even think I hit all the news points, but I'm sure, something more interesting will be happening than, the three-body problem coming out on Netflix soon, hopefully, because I'm waiting for those hearings.
Man, it was great speaking with you. We have had phone conversations that have been an hour long. I remember back in the early days of cab, I'd walk the dogs over by the golf course, and we would talk for an hour easily
Yes.
about stuff. So
Mhm.
I love talking to you. And that's why it's great being on here and going on our third year. And man, we got a prospect, Debs. Be like, hey, prospect, give me a beer. All right. Thank you to Courtney. I hope you've had safe travels, Court, wherever you're driving tonight. I'm sorry we missed you. Carolina Garcia, thank you for jumping in and asking a few questions. And next time we do a off the meter, you're invited, and come and stay for the whole show. And Dave is still rolling, man. He wants to keep going. Dave, we got to stop the show, man. I got to go shower. I did my job all day long, got up from my desk, ran, taught hot yoga, came home, put some oversalted chicken in my mouth, and then jumped on air. But that's how much I love talking about the phenomenon, interacting with you guys. I got to interact with Debs tonight and have one of our old school convos. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Debs. Okay.
And thank you.
I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you, Dave Smethurst. Oh, here it is. We'll put that little ticker at the bottom. Cab is a Money Nathan production. Okay. Please give us a like and a subscribe, and I will try to find the video to close the show. For Nathan, who is vacationing, for Courtney, who's on the road, our prospect, for Debs, our legend, and our research extraordinaire. This is DJ saying peace out, one love. We'll see you down the road. We're always wondering what's up around the bend because we don't know.